Welcome back to the Iraqi Dinar channel, everyone. I appreciate you joining me today because this update is one you absolutely need to hear, especially with all the noise, misinformation, and rumor-based panic going around in the dinar community. Today we're digging straight into the headline, Frank26 shuts down the LOP rumors. Here's the truth. And we're doing it in a clear, calm, and honest way so that every single viewer understands exactly what's happening. Why the rumor started, and why it makes zero sense when we look at Iraq's economic reality. So let's sit down, breathe, and talk through what Frank26 really said and why his explanation is making waves right now across the community. Because when big voices talk, people listen, but when big rumors spread, people worry, and today is all about clearing that up. A lot of people, especially newer followers of the Iraqi Dinar journey, hear the word LOP and instantly panic because it sounds scary. It sounds like something that can destroy potential value, erase hope, or suddenly flip the narrative upside down. And when someone on social media, in a chat room, or on a forum claims that a LOP is coming, people believe it before understanding what it actually means. But that is exactly the kind of fear-based misunderstanding that Frank26 is responding to. In his latest commentary, he went straight at the heart of the rumor and basically said, "This doesn't match economic logic. It doesn't match Iraq's inflation levels. It doesn't match current monetary policy. And it doesn't match the direction Iraq has been moving in for years." And when he explains it like that, it really does make people stop and think. Let's first break down what a LOP actually is, because this is the foundation of the entire conversation. A LOP is not simply removing zeros from currency physically. It isn't cutting bills or deleting value out of nowhere. A LOP is a monetary reset used by countries with extreme, uncontrollable inflation where the existing notes have become practically worthless. It's when the government recalculates the currency by knocking off zeros without changing the real value, just making numbers smaller. It's something countries like Turkey and Zimbabwe have done before. But the key point is this: a LOP is used when inflation is exploding and the currency has lost functional usability. Iraq does not match that scenario at all, and Frank26 repeated this very firmly when Frank26 addressed it. He made it extremely clear how nonsensical the rumor is when applied to Iraq's current economic situation. He talked about how inflation in Iraq is stable and low, in fact far too low for a LOP to even be on the table as a possibility. If a government were to LOP, it would be because inflation is spiraling out of control, the currency is dysfunctional, or the economic system is collapsing. Iraq, meanwhile, is working on strengthening its banking system, modernizing digital payments, boosting transparency, and aligning with international standards. These are not the signs of a country preparing a LOP. Instead, they are signs of a country preparing for external integration and international value stability. Frank26 also pointed out something that a lot of people forget. Iraq's current plan has always been about moving toward a stronger, internationally recognized currency, not a weaker one. A LOP would not strengthen the purchasing power of Iraqi citizens. It wouldn't reward the reforms Iraq has implemented. It wouldn't fit the narrative of rebuilding credibility in global markets. And it definitely wouldn't align with the long-term strategy of restoring confidence inside and outside the country. Iraqi officials have repeatedly talked about improving the value and stability of the IQD, not shrinking it on paper. That alone should make people question why the rumor even started. One thing that Frank26 emphasized, and it's something every viewer needs to remember, is that rumors spread fastest when there's silence, confusion, or uncertainty. When people don't have daily updates from official sources, they fill the gaps with theories, assumptions, or recycled fears. That's exactly how LOP rumors always return. But he explained that when you actually look at what Iraq is doing, the agreements, the reforms, the digital banking steps, the exchange rate adjustments with the U.S. Treasury, and the work with international financial institutions, it all tells a completely different story. A stable economy doesn't prepare for a LOP. A reforming economy doesn't prepare for a LOP. An internationally integrating economy doesn't prepare for a LOP. He also talked directly to the people, causing fear by twisting the definition of a LOP. Some make it sound like Iraq will suddenly delete the value of everyone's currency holdings overnight. That's not what a LOP is, and even when a LOP happens in other countries, it doesn't destroy people's money. It only changes the number system. But again, none of this applies to Iraq because Iraq is nowhere near the inflation or economic instability levels that make LOPs necessary. And Frank26 wasn't gentle about it either. He said the rumor isn't just wrong, it's irresponsible. Now let's talk about why some people push these rumors. Some do it because they're confused. Some do it because they misunderstand economic terms. And some, unfortunately, do it for attention. A dramatic rumor spreads faster than a boring fact. The dinar might LOP. Grabs attention instantly, even if it's not true. Frank26 explained that this is exactly why people need to think clearly. Listen to credible sources and base opinions on facts rather than fear-driven narratives. And that's why this conversation matters. Another important point Frank26 made was about Iraq's actual path. Iraq has been slowly, carefully preparing its financial sector for something much bigger than just a rate adjustment. They have been connecting banks to international payment systems, digitizing transactions, cracking down on corruption and smuggling, improving record-keeping and tightening central bank oversight. These are long-term structural moves, and countries do not carry out structural reforms like this just to end with a basic LOP. Structural reform is the foundation for something more meaningful. And Frank26 really focused on that. He reminded everyone that Iraq has been actively strengthening its foreign reserves, stabilizing the exchange rate and reducing dependency on the dollar. These are all moves toward currency strength, not weakness. A LOP is usually a response to weakness. Again, the opposite of what Iraq is doing. And when you listen to him break it down, it's actually surprising how the rumor even gained traction. Frank26 also spoke about Iraq's population and how a LOP would not benefit the citizens. It wouldn't help the average Iraqi, it wouldn't improve salaries, it wouldn't increase real buying power. It wouldn't fix corruption. It wouldn't help businesses. So why would Iraq choose a path that gives them almost nothing in return? This question alone makes the case even clearer. And when you match this with the statements Iraqi officials have made for years, emphasizing stability, growth, modernization, and increased value, the rumor just collapses under its own weight. One of the strongest points he made was about inflation. Iraq's inflation rate is not only low, it's significantly lower than many developed countries right now. He said it point blank, where in the world does a LOP come into the conversation when inflation is less than 1%? And honestly, that question is enough to shut down the rumor all by itself. A LOP is a tool for hyperinflation. Iraq is the opposite of that condition. The data does not support the rumor. The trend does not support the rumor. The logic does not support the rumor. Frank26 also addressed the emotional side of things. He reminded viewers that people have been holding on to this investment for years, and when they hear a rumor suggesting the worst possible outcome, fear kicks in. That fear makes people forget logic. They start believing the loudest voice instead of the most informed one. And that's why he took the time to speak so strongly. Because he knows fear spreads fast. But clarity spreads faster when people are willing to. Listen. He further explained that when officials talk about deleting the zeros, they are referring to a restructuring of currency intended to support a stronger economic environment, not a LOP. These are not the same thing, and people mix them up constantly. A structured redenomination connected to increased value is not a LOP. And Iraq has hinted many times that their monetary changes will not be inflation-driven but reform-driven. That's a huge difference. And it's something people must understand. Frank26 also mentioned that when Iraq talks about reevaluations, adjustments, modernization, and introducing lower denomination notes, these conversations make no sense in a LOP scenario. Lower notes are connected to increased value, not decreased. Why would a country preparing to LOP create smaller notes for a currency that's supposedly going to remain weak? Again, it doesn't add up. He reminded viewers that the Central Bank of Iraq has been working closely with the U.S. Treasury, IMF, and international financial partners. These are organizations that support stability, transparency, and international credibility. None of these institutions would be involved in a sudden LOP operation for a country not facing hyperinflation. Their involvement signals structure, not panic. And that was one of the clearest points he made. Another thing he explained was that the rumor cycle always returns right before something big happens. Every time Iraq moves forward, even slightly, the rumor mill panics. If there's a reform, someone says LOP. If there's an announcement, someone says LOP. If there's silence, someone says LOP. It's the default fear response for people who don't follow the actual data. And that's why the rumor came back now, not because something bad is happening, but because something is happening. He talked about how Iraq has recently been focusing heavily on digital infrastructure. This includes biometric systems, Dinar platforms, new ATMs, and international banking compliance. These systems are expensive and meant to bring the currency into a modern era. And countries investing millions in modernization do not implement a basic LOP afterward. That's like building a brand new highway only to close it the next day. None of it fits. Frank26 also highlighted the increasing international presence in Iraq. Countries, corporations, and global institutions have been engaging more with Iraq recently. And this wouldn't be happening if Iraq were preparing a reduction of its currency's representational value. Investors look for growth and stability. They don't line up for LOPs. And this is something a lot of people overlook. He pointed out that Iraq's current exchange rate changes, restrictions, and financial controls are not signs of desperation. They're signs of alignment with international protocols. These protocols are what enable future stability and possible rate adjustments that are meaningful. A LOP is not meaningful. A true revaluation is meaningful. And he made it clear that Iraq's path is structured for something meaningful. Frank26 also talked about the psychological effect of the rumor. When people hear LOP, they often imagine their investment disappearing. But he explained that even in countries that have LOPed before, value isn't erased. Numbers change, but value remains equivalent. But again, he stressed repeatedly, Iraq is not even in the category of countries that need or would perform a LOP. He said it so many times that the message became impossible to ignore. Another key point he shared was about the timing. People wonder why Iraq hasn't moved yet. They think the delay means something negative. But Frank26 reminded everyone that countries do not make major currency changes until all the right steps are in place. And Iraq has been working step by step, not skipping anything. This slow process is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of preparation. A LOP is a shortcut. Iraq is not taking shortcuts. They're taking the long, structured path. He encouraged people to stop feeding fear narratives and start focusing on what Iraq is actually accomplishing. And he shared examples of progress being made: new contracts, expanded trade agreements, stronger oil revenues, improved payment systems, and he made the point very clearly that all of these things support economic strength. A LOP is used when weakness is overwhelming. And Iraq, despite its challenges, is not in that condition. One of the most important messages he gave was to stay grounded. The dinar journey has always been long, confusing, and sometimes frustrating, but reacting to every rumor only makes the journey harder. He told viewers directly, look at what Iraq is doing, not what random rumor pages are saying. And he's right. The facts support stability, not collapse. The trend supports improvement, not regression. Finally, he closed by reminding everyone that the LOP rumor will always return, but the truth always beats the rumor. And the truth is that Iraq is not in a LOP situation, not heading toward a LOP decision, and not preparing for a LOP outcome. What they are preparing for is modernization, international alignment, and long-term currency strength. And that, more than anything, is the message people need to hold on to right now.